All right, Nation, let's get right to it. The Dallas Cowboys, Emmitt Smith, the great, the legend, spoke out a couple of days ago, and right before the Super Bowl, I believe. And we want to be able to dissect this, what he said about the Cowboys and all of their ways. And let me give you guys the insight. But shout out to Ashley, Nicole. Shout out to her doing a great job at SI. Let's listen.
Before we let you go, Michael Irvin was very critical, but it comes from a place of love of the starters and how the stars, rather, and how they didn't show up in the big game. What would be your advice to Dak, to Zeke, to CeeDee, to all those guys on the offense, and how they can go ahead and show up when it counts?
The one thing I would say to any young player, including the ones that you mentioned, is you're not a star yet.
Right.
You're not a GOAT yet. And you're not great yet. You have to win championships in order to become all of that. Yes, you're on the most visible football team in the entire world. And you're playing with a great organization. But your greatness is when you finish, and you finish well. In order to become a legend, you have to eliminate all of these things that we're talking about. Period. Outside of that, you're going to be living in the shadows of what came before you.
Yes, living in the shadows of what came before you is what Emmitt Smith is talking about. And I'm going to tell you guys that this particular team must find a way. Must find a way. Dak Prescott must perform better. Ezekiel Elliott, if they're going to give him the bulk of the carries, and Tony Pollard lack of carries, then Ezekiel Elliott must find a way. At this point, Amari Cooper, if he's on this team, and if they don't approach him with the salary cut or what have you, and they finally just release him to bring in somebody else, regardless, this team must find a way, right? That's just the bottom line. We can go back and forth with the things that's in place. But one thing I do know for sure, this particular team heading into the 2022 season will still have Kellen Moore, and we'll still have Mike McCarthy, and we'll have Dan Quinn. Those three guys right there. Of course, the special team coach, Johnny Bones. All four of those guys must find a way. And the leader of this team, regardless of the situation, will be on the offensive side, is Rain Dakota Prescott. I do know we got a young phenom, Michael Parsons, but Prescott, he got to find a way to win a playoff game and get beyond that. Regardless, that's what Emmitt Smith is alluding to, that you can't just win a playoff game. Basically, you got to get beyond that. If you think I'm lying, check out Danny White. Nobody's talking about, hey man, Danny White, he was a legend. No, and he took the team to the NFC Championship. What was it, 3 years consecutively, right? But that's not the situation for the Cowboys. Even if that happened for the Cowboys, that will not be enough. It's Super Bowl or bust every year.
You ain't lying.
Heavy is the crown, unfortunately. The Cowboys, last time they won a playoff game was 2018. 2018. And we got to look into this thing and say to ourselves, what happened since then? Well, 2019, 8-8, right? And then 2020. Pandemic, 6-10, new coaching philosophy and staff, right? And then follow that up for 2021. The quarterback got paid, and 12-5, and got first round tickets out of the playoff. You made it to the playoff, but you got first round tickets out of it, right? People were nervous. Didn't live up to the expectations of that year's Super Bowl or bust, right? So all of the excuses, everyone have a reason, but results are what matter, and that's what the mighty Emmitt Smith is saying, basically. So the Cowboys going to have to revisit the moment that they made it to the playoffs last season and say, we can't play like we played. We can't be timid. We can't be shy, scared, anxious. We got to get out there and make something happen. Be beyond that moment. And win, baby. That's the name of the game. Now, these are the things that's here to stay, whether you like it or not. Mike McCarthy for this year. Kellen Moore for this year. Dak Prescott for this year. Ezekiel Elliott, I don't think that the Cowboys will cut him or release him. So that whole saga of Tony Pollard versus Ezekiel Elliott, live with it, Cowboy Nation. Deal with it. The best thing that can happen out of this is they use both running backs at the same time, right? Or they solidify this offensive line during the draft and dance around in the free agency. We'll find out. I'm really high on the defense. I think the defense from the turnaround, historically speaking, I read an article that Dan Quinn, for him to turn this defense around to number one in takeaways, turnovers, or what have you, and number one on third down defense from where they were at, I can't wait to see what he's going to do now that he got a second year with the Cowboys on his defensive side. If the Cowboys have any hope, I think it's going to come from that defense. A shutdown defense that can make things go. And Dak Prescott must play perfect. There's no room for error with Dak Prescott. Don't matter if he beat all of the teams in the NFC East division. It don't matter. It's irrelevant. For him to be relevant, he must win multiple playoff games and Super Bowl. There's no way around it. This fan base is the Great Divide ice cream. You ever ate the Great Divide ice cream? It's good, by the way. But this is how this fan base is, the Great Divide. 37 touchdown, 10 interceptions, throwing for 104 QBR. That's not enough. That's not enough. For 4,000 yards, not enough. So next season, it can be 5,000 yards, 45 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. That would not be enough. Stats will not be enough. Stats will not save you. This guy must play perfect, and the teams that he beat, they must be playoff caliber teams, and that's just the reality of it. Regardless of the offensive line, regardless of the wide receivers, the route concepts, or the offensive coordinator, there's zero excuses. He must play perfect. He must be held to that level of degree in order to appease this fan base. That's just the reality of it. And those, ladies and gentlemen, are not a bevy of excuses. That's just the reality of it. Ezekiel Elliott, it is what it is. Like I said, he will be still here. I don't see the Cowboys cutting Ezekiel Elliott. And he must run perfectly, regardless of the offensive line being picked up and pushed back into the lap, right, of Ezekiel Elliott, or the 21 slam that the offensive coordinator yells out. Hey, 21 slam, right? Regardless, no excuses. This team must get beyond the playoffs to the Super Bowl or bust every year. That's the reality of it, Cowboy Nation. So pump the brakes a little bit. Don't smash the panic button. This is Mike McCarthy going into his third year with the Cowboys. So let's see how this thing shake out. Post me your thoughts, post me your concerns of the legendary, the great, the infamous Emmitt Smith for what he said about the Dallas Cowboys and those guys living up to the moment and getting beyond that if they really want to be superstars.
Show up when it counts.
The one thing I would say to any young player, including the ones that you mentioned, is you're not a star yet.